Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the ultimate battle for the future of American education. We're looking at a deeply profound and honestly urgent question. Who actually gets to decide what a human being becomes? It's a massive clash happening right now in our classrooms, inside massive tech headquarters, and all the way up in the halls of government. And trust me, the stakes literally could not be higher.
So think about it for a second. Who gets to decide what your child learns? For over 2 decades now, our education system has really been shaped by the convenience of the powerful. No parent ever cast a vote on No Child Left Behind. No family raised their hand for Common Core, and definitely no child consented to being endlessly measured and sorted by these corporate-designed standardized tests, right? This whole situation has sparked a massive crisis of agency in our classrooms. Look, pretty much everyone agrees the current system is undeniably broken. But the real, fierce debate we're unpacking today is over what broke it, and way more importantly, who holds the power to replace it.
In this explainer, we're neutrally laying out a pretty stark dialectic. On one side, you've got this top-down technocratic model. This is championed by billionaire figures like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. It's heavily driven by data, strict accountability, and now AI. But on the flip side, we have this bottom-up, developmental philosophy pioneered by Dr. Maria Montessori. And this contrast brings up a huge central debate among educators. It begs the question, why is society always so quick to just adopt the visions of these tech billionaires? Why do we keep doubling down on the tech bros, but we rarely listen to the actual trailblazers who have the most insight and who put the child rather than just the data at the absolute heart of their educational philosophy?
Okay, Section 1, the technocratic era, focusing on the first wave of billionaire influence.
Let's rewind a bit to the aftermath of the 2008 financial collapse. States were completely broke. Desperate for stimulus funds, they signed on to the federal Race to the Top program. Now, this effectively forced states into accepting the Common Core standards, which, by the way, were heavily backed by hundreds of millions of dollars from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. To get that desperately needed money, states had to tie their teacher evaluations directly to mandatory testing. At the time, this was pitched to us as modernization. But critics, they saw it as economic blackmail that stripped control right away from the actual educators and handed it over to a select few powerful non-educators.
Because here's the thing, Common Core wasn't just about updating academic standards. It basically sparked an absolute gold rush. It created this massive, nationalized ecosystem for edtech companies. Practically overnight, there was a unified market for brand new digital platforms, these prepackaged canned curriculums, and just endless data tracking systems. Schools were forced to redirect their limited funds to buy up laptops and software. So testing companies ended up making an absolute fortune, while actual, meaningful instructional time for the kids basically evaporated.
Ultimately, critics point out that this era transformed public education. It went from being a civic institution genuinely focused on human development straight into a managerial technocracy. The driving question totally shifted. It stopped being, hey, how do children learn best, and literally just became, how do we measure outputs efficiently at scale? Everything just became about standardized data. It prioritized metrics over the actual humanity of teaching, effectively turning our schools into high-stress test prep factories. Moving right along to Section 2, the AI frontier, covering Musk, Ad Astra, and the second wave.
So now, a completely new force has entered the chat to disrupt the system, artificial intelligence, and it's being led by that exact same tech billionaire class. They are more certain than ever that they know exactly what's best for your child's future. Elon Musk, for instance, argues that our current educational system is basically just an outdated software program from the 1800s that's focused purely on compliance. He even went as far as dismissing the vast majority of teachers as glorified babysitters. According to him, AI tutors are literally the only way to save civilization. His vision? Hyper-personalized game-like learning where an algorithm, rather than a real human guide, keeps kids constantly engaged.
To see this in action, look at Musk's experimental school, Ad Astra. There, they lean heavily on something called the conundrum framework. These are essentially open-ended ethical dilemmas used to teach critical and systems thinking. The logic is that, since artificial general intelligence is going to take over basic cognitive stuff, like math and writing, children need to master the really high-level skills that machines can't easily mimic. It sounds interesting, right? But it raises a massive, glaring question. Who exactly is programming the underlying values into these AI systems that are guiding our kids?
And this leads us to what some are calling a genuine democratic crisis. You see, Musk's physical schools are a boutique experiment. They serve only a tiny, highly affluent population of maybe 300 children globally. However, And this is wild. His conundrum framework has quietly made its way to tens of millions of public school kids. How? Through a partnership with the app Class Dojo, which is used in 95% of US K-8 schools. And the crazy part is, this is happening mostly without any parental awareness or democratic authorization. This billionaire tech visionary is scaling up completely invisibly.
All right, Section 3, the Montessori philosophy, the child-centric alternative.
Let's pivot entirely away from the tech disruptors and look at a totally different paradigm, the humanist vision of veteran educators. Because critics keep asking, why do we keep handing the reins to tech billionaires when we have a 117-year-old empirically proven model right in front of us? Grounded in decades of clinical observation, starting way back in the slums of Rome in 1907, Dr. Maria Montessori realized something incredibly profound. She saw that a child is not just an empty vessel waiting to be filled with top-down data. Instead, she observed that children possess what she called an absorbent mind. From birth to age 6, this biological instrument of adaptation lets kids just absorb knowledge, culture, and logic simply by living and interacting with their environment, no forced instruction required.
Montessori fundamentally believed that the right to define what a child learns belongs to the child's own nature. She beautifully stated, "The child is both a hope and a promise for mankind." In her proven model, the teacher isn't a babysitter, and they definitely aren't an AI algorithm. The teacher is a highly trained guide. Their whole role is to meticulously prepare the learning environment so that the child's intrinsic motivation can just flourish naturally, completely free from some rigid, corporate-designed curriculum.
Now, the really crucial takeaway here is that early childhood is the absolute foundation of our civilization. And hey, this isn't just nice-sounding philosophy, it's hard economics. Nobel-winning economist James Heckman found that every single dollar invested in high-quality early childhood education actually returns $7 to $12 back to society. We're talking better health, higher education rates, and reduced social costs. This specific window of human brain development is so critical that absolutely no tech intervention later in life can ever make up for missing it.
Yet despite all this overwhelming evidence of what actually works, the US remains one of the only wealthy democracies on the planet with zero universal free preschool programs. Meanwhile, the Montessori method, which remember was built for working-class children over a century ago, has organically scaled to 20,000 programs worldwide. There is just this massive, tragic gap between this incredibly accessible, proven model and actual American policy. Policy that seems to always prefer funding the next shiny edtech fad instead of investing in the foundational years of human development.
Finally, Section 4, choosing our educational future and the core clash of values.
So, how do these two completely distinct visions clash when we talk about the ultimate purpose of learning? And what about the very real threat of our kids facing political or ideological capture? Well, it really all boils down to two entirely different definitions of freedom. On one side, Musk advocates for libertarian market freedom. Think school choice vouchers, handing authority over to AI, and optimizing children to survive a highly technological future. But Montessori? She argued for the child's freedom. She wanted to protect a child's pure encounter with truth from any kind of ideological capture, whether that's from state bureaucrats, Christian nationalists, or techno-utopian billionaires. For her, education was always about building true human character and solidarity, not just teaching kids to compete with machines.
To make sense of these contrasting realities, education experts suggest we need a real democratic praxis, not just another elite billionaire-funded experiment. That means actually demanding universal early education. It means establishing democratic governance over our curriculums instead of these stealth tech rollouts we've been seeing. It means treating our human teachers with genuine professional dignity. And crucially, it means keeping AI strictly as a transparent, auditable tool that serves those human educators, rather than letting it become some unchecked authority figure dictating to our kids.
Which brings us to our final, provocative thought. As we stand here navigating the dawn of advanced AI and this relentless technocratic influence, what kind of human future are we actually choosing for our classrooms? Do we just optimize our children to act as junior engineers perfectly fitted for a technological future? Or do we empower them as sovereign human beings, full of character, agency, and dignity? The evidence strongly suggests it's time we finally start listening to the educators who actually know. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.